Now we move on to sports stories. The Embassy of Nigeria in Doha has reiterated an advisory to Nigerian travelers regarding strict rules of behavior demanded by the Qatari authorities. They previously introduced the hire card for all those who plan to participate in the World Cup, saying that those who obtain a valid hire card are not required to apply for a visa in order to enter Qatar.
We have started experiencing this thing, and we sense it will happen with our people. There is a bad egg back home, and some people, those who are at this end, telling them that they are getting them visa, telling the innocent Nigerians that they are getting them visa. When they come here after World Cup, they will be able to secure a job and to continue them. They are not ready to go back, and they pay huge amount of money to Nigerian travel agents and some of those link around this Gulf region. And for last week we have many people. That's the reason why I issue a travel advice advising Nigerians when they are coming to Doha with that hire card is not a visa, it's not a working visa and cannot be transferred or converted to a working visa. So if anybody deceiving them that by getting hire card for them to come to Doha after World Cup, after the tournament to get a job, they are deceiving them.
Are you preparing for the eventuality of Nigerians coming to Qatar and being stranded here, or some refusing to go back?
Yeah, we have a lot of them. What we are advising them as quickly as possible to facilitate for them to change their ticket to go back to Nigeria after the World Cup or immediately, because some of them, they were stranded. A lot of them, their money pay up to 5 million naira to come to Doha, to get that hire something to come to Doha, and they will register them with the hotel. And when they reach that hotel, they don't have their booking. And some of them, they are sleeping on the street. Some of them are coming to the embassy to sleep here. It's unfortunate. This is what is happening now. And we are trying to track down those who are behind those things back at home and this in Doha. And at least we can deal with them.
What would you say to Nigerians? I would like you to reiterate the facts about the hire card issue and visas.
Hire card is just for people. It will allow you to come and watch the tournament and go back. It cannot be converted as working visa or tourist visa.
Hire card is just for FIFA. Qatari rules, Nigerians, and how it affects Nigerians in Qatar.
Well, I mean, it's good to see Nigeria now issuing travel advisories. The other time when, the US, the UK, and Australia, and and Canada, and some other countries issued travel advisory about security in Nigeria. I think subsequently, Nigeria also issued a travel advisory advising Nigerians in the US to avoid going to certain places where there was gun violence. And now this travel advisory is with regard to the ongoing World Cup in Qatar. And of course, at that point, the point was made that every country has a right to advise its citizens, okay, without necessarily interfering in the affairs of that particular state. So that's one thing that we can take away from this. The second point is that when you are in another person's country, yes, that state that you are going to has a responsibility to protect everybody. But you are also obligated to abide by the rules in that country. And I think Kabike Dabiri-Erewa, in charge of the Diaspora Commission, had made this point repeatedly, telling Nigerians that, look, as they say, when you are in Rome, do like the Romans. Don't expect that if you go against the law, the Nigerian state will come and intervene. You also have to abide by the rules. In the case of the World Cup ongoing in Qatar, first Arab country to host the World Cup, first Middle Eastern country to host the World Cup. There have been a number of rules about how people should behave, which, have raised questions about human rights, about Qatar's conservative nature. But so far, this has turned out to be a very interesting tournament with a lot of melodrama here and there. And some countries, in fact, have had to be sanctioned for their behavior, like Serbia, like Croatia. They've been slammed with fines by FIFA. But with regard to consular services, it's also the responsibility of the whole state to determine, the kind of consular services they will give you. If they say this hire card allows you only to watch the World Cup, then that is what that hire card is meant for. It's not an immigrant visa as such. And so I think the clarification is very important. And Nigerians should just know that anywhere they are in the world, while the state has the responsibility to protect them and respect their rights, they themselves, under international rules, have an obligation to respect the rule of law and the guidelines of that state.
Absolutely. I mean, what Dr. Bati, when you were speaking, my mind and in terms of our conduct as Nigerians when we are abroad, at the World Cup we've seen countries exhibit identity, culture, and just the culture of the people. And it begs to wonder, as I thought about it, that what is the Nigerian culture? What are we? I remember those, when we had the National Orientation Agency, the Pride in Nigeria, and beyond the wanting to perhaps convert your hire card into a work visa or an immigration visa, is also the sense and the spirit of Nigerianness when we are abroad, and and what our reputation is, when we are abroad. Very famously, Japan was in the news for the culture of cleanliness, respect of people, and just the environment. And this made headlines in the sporting world and even beyond the sporting world. And for us in Nigeria, it's interesting that one of the things that we talk about very often is make sure you don't use the opportunity to jackpot, because that's not the purpose of the hire card. And perhaps it's time for us, borrowing the word that Bufai said earlier on, to introspect and begin to define our culture, our sense of Nigerianness, especially when we are abroad. And also to investigate the reason why people would want to take on these options and perhaps begin to fix those things internally in Nigeria. Why do we find it, the moment we have an opportunity to step outside the shores of the country, we're looking for ways to ensure we never return? That's a big problem. And so we shouldn't let that mar our experience.
But the truth is, we know the reasons why people are jackpotting. Jackpot is real. We know the economic situation. Let's not deceive ourselves. But that doesn't condone that activity. It is wrong. Like they stated clearly, the hire card is for you to go out there, watch the World Cup, and you come back to your country. Don't use it as a form of immigrant count, don't do anything untoward. But we know the reason why people are leaving. In this same Nigeria, that people are going to school abroad and they're not coming back. In the 70s, people will go school abroad and they came back to their country. So we know the economic situation. But it's not an excuse for people to take it. And it's not only Nigerians, let's not deceive ourselves. I mean, there was a Kenyan athlete in the last Commonwealth Games somewhere in Gold Coast in Australia, absconded. We've had many cases of athletes absconding and things like that. But it also feeds into the economic narrative back home. And we can truly be that Nigeria that we used to be at some point. Although some people will argue with you that even when you say the good old days of Nigeria, was it that, yeah, it was appreciably better, not that it was entirely very good. But people came back because there was a lot of prospects. I mean, we were here on this show. There was a doctor here that was talking about UCH in the 70s and said people actually left Canada to come have their children in UCH in Ibadan. I mean, there are copious notes about the Saudi royal family used to come and receive their healthcare in UCH in Ibadan. UCH was I think, tagged the 5th best, teaching hospital in the Commonwealth in the 70s. So the question is, what can you say the same about UCH today? What happened to the healthcare sector? What happened to all of that? So we know these factors, but please, people should not use that as an opportunity to disgrace Nigeria and all that, despite the fact that we know Jackpot is real, but do what is right.